I think the problem is people live to their means. So
Yes.
if you give someone more money, they'll spend more money,
Yes.
or they might even spend more money than you're giving them.
Yeah.
So it's not, financial education isn't just something which is for lowly paid, workers who are on, let's pick on 0-hour contracts and go with that kind of cliche example. Like very well paid people are also quite bad with money.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Plum Pod, where we talk about all things HR and mental health. I'm your host, Georgia, and founder of Access HR. If you haven't prioritized financial well-being, you're in luck. I'm joined by experienced people director, Andy Mulder. And whilst this episode doesn't constitute financial advice, it does bring light to the importance of financial education and how it can improve productivity and retention. Andy, hi.
Hello.
Welcome to the studio here in London.
It's an excellent studio.
I know, I am a bit biased towards it, but it is very, very nice.
I'm enjoying the purple hue. It's very nice.
And calm, right?
Yeah, apart from the very stark lights.
Yes. We'll ignore them.
Yeah.
And
There's no lighting. This is how we look. It's just
this is all natural.
natural.
And to get started, I actually really want to start to talk about you. So today we've got a really good topic that's definitely topical, especially with what's going on in the world. To set the scene a little bit, I want our listeners to know more about you. And a question that I've got is one that I ask for every single guest.
Oh, this is a surprise question.
And the question is, was HR part of the plan, or did this happen by chance?
Yeah, so I did HR at uni. I'm probably the only person.
You
Yes, I
did.
did.
Undergrad or postgrad?
Both.
You are the first. You are
I
the
had-
first
yeah,
undergrad. I'm
I-
postgrad,
yeah.
not undergrad.
Yes. So it's funny. This is how the last podcast I did started. So I'll start by explaining that. So I was of that generation where it's just everyone, school, college, uni, off you went. And I knew I wanted to do a business related thing, but I wasn't, however old you are, 16 or whatever, wasn't really thinking about it too much. So I was looking at the course like subscription and how like oversubscribed or undersubscribed they were. And everyone was doing marketing, and there was this thing called HR, which hardly anyone had signed up to. So I said, all right, well, I'll do that then. I'll differentiate myself a bit. If no one else is studying this thing, I'd rather be the person that knows something that other people don't, rather than the person that, is one of 100,
That makes sense.
150 other people. So that was that. And, off you go. It was a 20-year-old or whatever it was. Just really off to.
So did you know what HR was before you? No, I don't think any of us do.
As a 17-year-old or whatever you are, no, definitely not. No, but I think at the time I did a little bit of, like, what is it?
Yeah.
And it sort of was in a, said, oh, it's about the way businesses, manage their people and set themselves up. And I suppose for me, my dad had been through a pretty difficult time with a very large multinational, and the way it was handled was quite horrible. He was very happy at the end when he retired when he was 55 and had a great time. But so there was the tiniest little bit of lived experience on my part that I thought, all right, well, maybe that's what I'll go and do. So I went and did that, and then fell out of uni, did jobs for a few years, and then decided, yeah, fine, I'm going to go and do a master's now, because it was the whole CIPD thing.
Yep.
And I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to put all of that work in. I want to at least get an academic, qualification. I want to go and have a graduation at least. So I just pivoted into doing a master's and just wrapped it all up in that. So I am fully HR'd to the eyeballs.
You are. And you are honestly the first that we've had from
I'm
an
not
undergrad.
surprised. Yeah.
I wonder actually if anyone listening will be in shock horror. I mean, we filmed so many episodes and we finally had somebody who did it as an undergrad. I'm really curious to know, what was your first ever HR role?
Depends how you class it. So fell out of uni and started doing recruitment, as many do. And I was working as a sort of exec search, doing technical hires for McLaren F1. So that was very cool. My first proper HR role was at the Prince's Trust, as it was now the King's Trust. So that was in a charity, largest youth charity in the UK. Entry level job, back when, what was I won't say what I was getting paid, but it wasn't very much. So that was an interesting place to start life.
And how have you found then the transition with your roles to where you are now as people director?
I found it quite easy, I think, because of the start in exec search. You have to learn a lot about a very strange new thing very quickly. So one day I'd be hiring technical people for an F1 team, then I'd be driving up to Cumbria to go and meet nuclear project engineers. Then I'd be talking to financial people the next day. So it just meant I had a capacity to kind of pivot into something new, learn about it pretty quickly, sound like I know what I'm talking about at first until you do. And I think that served me quite well, actually, going job to job throughout my career, where I've not stayed in a particular thing.
Yeah.
I've stayed in jobs a long time, but I've not been sector agnostic. So recruitment, then into, I volunteered in a council for a little while I was trying to find my way, what I wanted to do. Then I went into charity, then I went into an NGO, then I went into a city law firm, then I went into a marketing tech business, then I came to Nudge. So they're just all totally different. And the cultures have all been wildly different. The jobs have all been wildly different. The job has changed a lot in 18, 20 years, whatever it is. So
amazing.
It's a long time.
And you actually mentioned Nudge, and for today's episode, we're really going to focus on financial well-being.
Yeah.
And given your position as people director at Nudge, who better to have on this episode than you?
Well, probably Tim, our CEO, but apart from him.
No, he's not got HR background.
No, he doesn't.
So
He doesn't.
that's why you're
Very strong benefits background, but yeah.
perfect to have as a guest. And for our listeners, a lot of people may automatically, when they think about well-being, think about mental health and not necessarily financial well-being, which is why I'm so excited to have this conversation. Could you break it down to me for what actually is financial well-being?
Yeah, and I think the two things are quite linked. Well-being, whatever it is, whether it's physical well-being, mental, financial, is the end state, isn't it? It's actually where you want people to get. It's not a thing in and of itself, and it's as a brand, well-being has been beaten up in the global media lately, but really what it means is health of some form. So I think we can all agree that's a good thing, no matter what spin media wants to put on things. I think for Nudge, what do we think it is? It's about education. It's about helping educate people, giving them confidence and control over their money in what are increasingly uncertain and volatile times. So I mean, even just looking at the news today, on the one hand, you've got inflation's running X, Y, or Z. The cost of, I can't remember what it was. It was a weird choice of coffee and bananas are 20% more expensive than they were. But then in the same breath, its mortgage rates are coming down for the first time, and isn't that good news? And so the financial world is very baffling for people, and usually, certainly the UK, I think, doesn't do a very good job of equipping even intelligent, smart people for looking after their own futures. And that's why financial well-being is, I think, something which is gaining traction now, because I think what businesses are realizing is actually there is a link between people's financial health and their mental health, and therefore their well-being when they're at work. So what people need are tools, a safe way to learn about these things, free from all the kind of fear of being sold to or anything like that, where they can just get the facts. So impartiality is a big thing, but also creating content that people can consume in the right way. And that's really what Nudge is all about.
I really love as well what you said around education. I think that's a really big piece. If I think of when I left university, going into my first corporate role, was I prioritizing my financial well-being? no. And things that are important to me now weren't a priority for me at the time. But I'm definitely noticing more and more employers are seeing the connection of we do need to prioritize financial well-being internally. And on the flip, it's also supporting businesses to attract and retain really great talent.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why it's really important for us as people leaders to understand why we need to be prioritizing financial well-being, because I don't always think it's been on our radar.
No, I don't think it has. And I think there's this sort of sense that employers get, which is always uncomfortable, because if people are struggling financially, that must be our fault.
Yes.
Because we're just not paying them enough. And actually, I think there's been that sort of, mental arithmetic, whether it's in leadership teams or whatever it might be. And I mean, it isn't really true. Like, I don't think many people would, lay all of their financial problems at the door of their employer. And actually, I think more and more employers are realizing that actually it's possible to have a sensible conversation with people about money in a way that doesn't infantilize them, condescend them, but really just acknowledges that most people probably aren't thinking about their money as much as they should, because it's not a sexy subject to talk about. There are lots of glamorous apps out there that do all sorts of things that it's maybe very easy to kind of whip up, and maybe financial education historically hasn't been the one that's getting people so interested. But I was also thinking about this, I can't remember why, but certainly like millennials like me, I think, if we sort of draw the line at 2008, once the credit crunch, if any, there's words that people probably haven't heard for a while, but really from that point up until, even probably, after COVID, just probably when COVID happened, that was the long summer really of a pretty stable time globally, whether it was to do with geopolitics or finances. There weren't really crisis moments that people had, like proper crisis moments that we had to navigate. You'd remortgage and your mortgage would come down. I remember that, as a young person, like 8 years ago, younger than I am now. You'd be remortgaging and it would be, oh, right, the mortgage has gone down by 50 quid. That's nice. And there was just this sort of baked in assumption that it would always be that way. You get this letter with your mortgage application that would say, oh, by the way, if mortgage rates go to 5%, 10%, 15%, it's going to cost you this much. And you'd sort of look at it and laugh and think, maybe in the 70s that was a thing, but no longer. And then all of a sudden the paradigm changes and you realize, oh, right, it was this, actually what we had there was unusual. And what we're facing now is probably actually what's more usual, which is a lot more volatility. And I think that's the realization that employers are having now, which is it's volatile out there. But the problem is it's too late now to just try and correct everything by doing one thing and therefore hoping that everything will get better quickly. It's something we always have to make hay while the sun's shining, get these programs running, get the education out there. Like, yes, it can help people quickly. Like, education can have a very rapid impact, but it takes a while to get people fully engaged in things. So it's better to get these things going when it's not such a problem so that you can reap those benefits when the volatility strikes, which it will.
I completely agree. It's also about being proactive with it as well. With the cost of living, like you said, it's in the news, it's everywhere, it's on social media. People are talking more about their finances and their financial situation. And I also love that you just said it's not for the employer to throw more money at the employee. I think as well there is that misunderstanding with financial well-being of a knee-jerk reaction of, oh, we'll just pay more. That's not getting to the root cause and helping the employee to really support them through that state of crisis. And that's where financial education is super helpful. But the way that we can do that the best is by speaking to our people.
Yeah. And I think the problem is people live to their means. So if you give someone more money, they'll spend more money. Or they might even spend more money than you're giving them. So it's not, financial education isn't just something which is for lowly paid workers who are on, let's pick on 0-hour contracts and go with that kind of cliche example. Like, very well paid people are also quite bad with money.
I actually read a
scale
statistic.
is larger.
I actually read a statistic and it said that
people whose salaries between 29,000 to 60,000 are actually better off with their financial stability compared with employees who have over 60,000. They're in a more state of a crisis with their financial well-being.
Yeah.
So I actually think we need to rethink this.
Yeah.
It's not just our lower end team members. We need to be opening this up to how can we actually support people through money management,
Yeah.
budgeting,
Yeah.
property management, and planning for families. There's all of these things that I don't think we've actually thought about before.
Yeah. And people don't. And the people you've just described, I saw an acronym for this the other day called Henrys. High earners, not rich yet.
I like it.
And they probably never will be rich because,
Mhm.
you know, they burn through their income every month, or they throw it at stupid things, or, you know, there isn't this sense that there's a need to plan or think about a mortgage or a pension or whatever it might be. It's just not a priority yet. But that doesn't mean they can't end up in a situation of financial distress. But some of the problems that you see with various financial well-being offerings out there is that, you know, particularly with things that are maybe selling you financial advice, aside from the conflict, is that they're usually only interested in the very well-paid people, because that's where the pension pots are that can be moved around into different funds or whatever it might be. So that's where having something which is really education focused, not geared towards here's a human money coach with a qualification that wants to unpick all of your finances, and then you start doing scary things with your money, is actually just about leveling up people's baseline so that they can make informed decisions for themselves about the basics first. And then if you get to a point where you're thinking, you know what, now I want to learn more about some of this more advanced stuff,
Yeah.
then maybe you decide to go there. But actually, I think for many employers, the idea that they're unleashing these sort of financial salespeople effectively on their workforces sometimes can be quite a scary thing. And is again why employers shy away from it, because they think, my goodness, like, I don't want to be responsible for our employees like plowing a month's salary into crypto, and before you know it, it's all gone, and they're knocking on, like, it's a very sensational example. But again, I think that's part of why employers have shied away from it, because it feels like how you spend your money is up to you.
Yeah.
But you know, you can help people make wise choices.
I completely agree. And equally, it's not the responsibility of the employer, but I also think being interested in that space of how to support your team will definitely have a ripple effect on the organization. When you were talking then around, it can be quite scary bringing in someone who's going to talk all the financial jargon, I was actually thinking of when I was more junior in my career and in my mid-20s. The language was too much for me. I didn't understand it. The tone was very serious, which obviously money is serious, but I needed someone to like really break that down and educate me and use more of like a fun tone, but inspirational tone at the same time. And I think that's a really good way that we can start to put the correct strategies and programs, like you mentioned earlier, in place. But I also think there may be a bit of resistance with budget and not everyone having as deeper pockets as we would like. So what would be your advice for anyone who's listening who doesn't have those deep budgets?
Yeah. It doesn't need to be, you know, the reason you buy a tool is because you've got a process that you can't scale anymore. If you're buying a tool before that, you're doing it too early. You know, so I think if you've not got deep pockets, if you're talking about small to medium sized businesses, I think the starting point is always, as we've kind of already touched on, get a conversation going. Now, this is a little bit of a, you know, forgive me, but, you know, Nudge's webpage, anyone listening to this, if you're in one of those small businesses, we've got a financial wellbeing calendar that we've created. It's free. You can download it. It's all there to be had. So go and dig that out, because that just needs to be a starting point. You need to curate a cadence where people are talking about these things. All these things exist, various awareness weeks, whether it's about pensions or, you know, International Day of Families, where you're thinking about, you know, planning for your family's future. Whatever it looks like, you just need to, you know, put an environment around it, put in a cadence where there are moments for people to talk about these things, and get your comms right. There is also comms help on our website that you can download for free if you want to. It's all, you know, it's there to be found. But you know, that has to be the starting point, which is just get people talking about it. And that doesn't mean jump in and start trying to give people advice. Like you have to tread very carefully around it. But then you'll have other things, there'll be benefits that you've got. Benefits education is a huge part of financial well-being. That's the whole history of our business. Tim, Jed, the founders that set it up, a large number of people that work for us, all started life working in, the benefits sector, doing stuff with benefits tech and flexible benefits and all that stuff. And what they realized was there was this kind of sense of unfamiliarity with benefits. And that kind of went hand in hand with, well, if you don't understand some of the basics of your own benefits, it usually led to actually, and part of that was people just didn't have the right level of financial education to understand why some of those things were important. What is compound interest? Why do you need to start paying into a pension early? What's life assurance even for? How does that help when you're getting a mortgage? Like, just some of the real basics, people don't see it. So get the conversation going and start by educating on the things that you do have.
You mentioned comms then, which I think is so key. And then equally on the same side, culture, and having a transparent culture where it is okay to talk about your financial state and financial well-being, and the comms around that, why we're having this conversation and why we're introducing this, I think is also really key to what you've just said then, because otherwise we would be bringing something in that actually may not be helpful in any way, and we're doing it purely to tick a box and not for the correct reasons at all. We'll actually pop in the link that you just mentioned then within the show notes, because I think that's really beneficial for anyone listening to start to flex that muscle and build the momentum that we spoke around earlier, because this is the reality as well. And for our financial circumstances, it can have a huge impact on how we show up at work and our overall health and our performance. And I do think that is why organizations need to start and take this seriously.
Yeah. And there are just many layers to it. So comms isn't it. Well, it may be for some, send a message, send a Slack. But, if we look at the way the Nudge product works, it's a platform, it's got financial education content, but it's all the other stuff around the edge where we provide that support to help people with designing their financial education program. So it's not just, it's an app, because it isn't. And, that is things like, our market nudges. So when there's a big financial event in the world, if there's a budget, interest rates change, out will come one of these nudges to remind people, here's something, here's a call to action. There's online masterclasses, there are in-person masterclasses, there's financial wellbeing champion training. It's all of these things that make up the tapestry of what is a program that, as and when you have the need to scale something out, an organization like ours can help you do that in a way which is kind of proven. It's used by some of the biggest businesses in the world. But the point is, it's around creating lots of these different ways of engaging with people on a subject, so that you find the way that's right for them. Because I wish I knew the stat, but we publish a financial wellbeing report. The 2025 report's out now. Again, you can download it on the website. And there was an alarming stat around Gen Z and how many of them access their financial advice, learning, education on TikTok. And that might be fine as a medium if that's how you consume content. But it's, as we all know, the wild west of social media. There may well be very legitimate content on there, but we all know some of the nonsense, if
you've got to be careful where you get your information
or currencies
from,
or whatever it might be, just get amplified through these unsafe, frankly, platforms for taking any sort of financial advice.
And there are a lot of people on social media now who are using TikTok as an outlet for financial advice. I completely agree. I see these profiles and I think, you just need to be very mindful of what you're consuming and go to more reliable resources. There's so much data and really great information that's available out there, and leaning on professionals within the space who are really prioritizing that within their role. There's nothing wrong with getting a bit of friendly advice and, tapping into that. But I think for us to be more proactive as, partners to organizations within the people space, we need to be going to the right resources.
Yeah. And there are free ones out there.
Yeah.
But what I have observed about those things is, because I obviously have an interest in all of them, they tend to target the very damaging the mic, the very kind of the people in the most peril, which is, how do food banks work? How to get a bank account if you haven't got one, and that's fine, but that isn't necessarily going to be helpful for the sort of 80% of us in the middle of that spectrum, where it's actually we just need a bit more.
Yeah. Have you noticed a difference with the larger organizations that you mentioned in terms of their financial well-being strategy and what they are kind of doing in the space compared with smaller organizations?
Yeah, it's just exponentially harder the bigger you get. So if you take a UK business, let's look at what's going on. As I was describing, you've got inflation doing one thing, interest rates doing another thing, you've got pensions, you've got new taxes, you've got all of this stuff going on. You've got a regulatory framework in this country. You've got, the FSA regulating everything and, telling people what products they can and can't buy. You've got nest pensions, you've got private pensions, you've got DB pensions, all of that. And that's just one place. So the moment you then say, we've got a footprint as well in Australia. Oh, right. Okay. So all of a sudden, everything let's pretend we're doing it, for nothing. Everything we've just put together here is now worthless, because now we've got to scale this. And this is what comes back to my point around tools.
Yeah.
And that's really where businesses generally find us at Nudge, because that's what we're experts in doing. We're able to help them say, we've identified a need, whatever has brought them to the table to talk about this as a subject. And usually the problem that they're facing is they have a global workforce where they need to scale financial education. Maybe they're already doing it. Maybe actually they're just, completely fresh to it. And actually they need content for the US, the UK, Australia, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, whatever it might be. And you've got a few options there. One is you're going to try and take it upon yourself to find providers in each one of those locations that can somehow provide an equal experience to your people globally, which is probably very unlikely. Or you come to something like Nudge, where actually, we have a global education platform and we can localize it depending on where you are in the world. We can work with those reward and benefits teams generally globally to make sure that actually we're using the platform, we're using those targeted nudges, we're personalizing the content and the education based on the needs that they have. So that tends to be when, for a product like ours, people come to the table where they say, look, there's no way we can do this meaningfully on our own.
And also, having in one space makes it so much easier from an employee's perspective in terms of consumption, rather than having to go from a variety of places to get the information and to get resource. And PwC have actually said that 60% of employees have said that they're more likely to stay with an organization that invests in their financial well-being and actually takes it seriously. And I think we're at such a pivotal point now. We're not doing this. I think we're going to really run into commercial concerns when we don't, because if we're not prioritizing financial well-being, we're going to see a rise in presenteeism, absenteeism, and turnover.
Yeah.
What organization wants that?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, the numbers are like, I'll dig the references out afterwards, but anecdotally, I read something the other day. I think it said that over the past 5 years, sickness absence has increased 41%, which, that's a big throwaway number. Sounds very scary. There's, usually the truth is somewhere in the middle with these things, net it down a bit, but it's gone up. And what we know from our research is the numbers were something like, physical, mental, social health, those three things, people were more likely to rate, it was something like 7 times more likely to rate those things favorably where they had a higher level of financial literacy or financial education. So it does start to speak for itself in that, when you talk about making the case for these types of things, that it's very easy to quickly draw a line back to those things. And even if you say, okay, maybe 20% of that is true, by the time you extrapolate that over a large organization, you're saying, okay, let's pretend that sickness absence has gone up even 5% across a population of 3,000 people. If there's a product or if there's an intervention that you can make to change that, then why wouldn't you want to do that? if you're completely cold to the moral, ethical, human element of just wanting to make things better for your people, if you just boil it down to something very cold and stark like that. But if you look at things like benefits uptake as well, like where people are educated towards those benefits, we've got the receipts to show that actually, you know what a surprise if you nudge your entire workforce and remind them about how pension salary sacrifice works, or how bonus sacrifice works, or that you've got your life assurance, you need people to be filling in these forms. Surprise, surprise, when you educate them on it, they're more likely to take action.
I actually think one of the hardest things, and I've definitely been guilty of this in the past as a people professional, implementing amazing benefits and then team members coming and saying, hey, I would really love if we had life insurance. And I'm like, we have that. I'm like, oh my goodness, we have that. But where we've gone wrong is we haven't communicated with the team and kept that momentum of here is actually a piece within our wider wellbeing strategy. But I completely agree with what you're saying there. There are so many pieces that we can do. And especially what you just said around absenteeism. It costs the UK billions every single year. But what are we going to do about it? I think that's where now we should be thinking about that as people professionals. And I hope people who are listening who aren't prioritizing their financial wellbeing strategy have started to take some nuggets, even a small one that they could take today and hopefully put in practice. So with that in mind, from a financial wellbeing perspective, how do you think that we can really start to get leadership buy-in? Let's say an organization has never done this, fully blank slate. How can we start to get leadership buy-in to start to implement and prioritize financial wellbeing?
Yeah. I think for start, I'm not going to bleat on about data. Everyone gets it. You got to start with why. If you're not thinking in that way, then if you're just adding this in because it's something else that you've read that you think, oh, well, we should do that, then that's not going to hold much weight. I mean, I think, depending on what your strategy looks like, for something like Nudge, there's all sorts of extra insight you can get. We can tell you what your people are looking at, what they're interested in. We can tell them if people are interested in pensions or interested in particular insurances or family benefits. So that creates useful information for an organization to be able to access. Often it's about also driving value from the things you already have. If you're already investing in, life assurance, private medical insurance, pension, these things are there already. And actually, to exactly what you were just saying, if you've got these things that aren't being used, you've either got them, for the wrong reasons because you're just paying lip service to them. Actually, you're quite happy with uptake being low, because it makes it cheaper for you or something like that. In which case, you're probably not going to get your business case signed off if that's just the culture is wrong. But if these things are there being underutilized, it makes sense to get people using them because you're wasting your money otherwise. And in many cases, if you're working with the right organization, part of what we try to do is act as almost financial consultants, not advisors, but to businesses where, if you're looking at implementing Nudge and you're, for instance, not yet using, you haven't got your pension set up as a salary sacrifice and you're paying all of that national insurance, a 500-person business flipping over to salary sacrifice could save 130 grand a year sometimes in employers' national insurance. But even HR professionals aren't sometimes educated, understandably sometimes, enough in these things to be able to say, if we do this one thing, that's going to fund whatever we want to do. Maybe it's financial wellbeing, maybe it's something else. But if you don't know about it, you can't do it. So there are ways I think you can get this buy-in and this influence, but you just have to understand the levers that you have to play with.
You're absolutely right. If we don't know, how can we put that on the table as a recommendation? And hopefully this is what we really want as well with our podcast, to open people's hearts and minds for what is possible and how we can build a better future of work that is actually a lot more human. And that's the reality, that all of us need to start to, change our own mindset and our own actions and how we can put better systems in place. So I actually only have one last question. for you for today. And a question is, which is actually funny saying it now because you started in HR and that was always your trajectory for this. But the question is, looking back in the early days of your career, what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
One piece of advice I would give my younger self.
Maybe when you're in the recruitment days.
Yeah, it's good. I'm quite happy with where I ended up. So it'd almost be like, just keep going.
That's fine.
But no, I think, what would I say? I think there's always something about just being unafraid to express what you really think.
Mm.
Because actually people value that a lot more now, I think.
Did you find a point where you didn't express yourself and you thought, oh,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I still don't. I think it's just how people are, isn't it? But picking your moments. But so I think there's something in that. But actually, sorry, I processed now. What I would say is you just need to put yourself out there early. And it's tied to saying what you think, is just not be afraid to fail at something. So grab hold of that thing that's gonna get you found out if you make a mess of it, because you'll learn a lot more from making a mess of it than you will by never doing anything. And it won't matter in 10 years that it was a bloody, well, depending on what you do. If you bring down Barings Bank, it might. But there's something in, and I probably did shy away from it in the early days, of actually really grabbing hold of something and being like, the equivalent would be like, as a HR advisor somewhere, you say, right, I'm going to actually, I really believe in this nudge thing. I'm going to I want to advocate for this, and I'm going to be the voice internally that makes this happen. And just don't listen to that voice that's saying like, but what if, what if you fall? It's the whole what if you fall, what if you fly, lovely meme thing. But it's true, which is like the kind of, we put too much stock in what we stand to lose, and we put less in what we could gain. I think as human beings, we feel a greater sense of loss than almost never having something. But try and ignore that if you can, and just go for it, because it won't matter if something goes wrong.
I love that. And I definitely agree with the point. 10 years from now, that isn't something you would look back and be like, oh, for how overwhelming and all-consuming that felt in that moment. But honestly, Andy, thank you so much for your time. And I've loved talking around financial education. It's definitely a piece I personally wish I would have had in my career. And I know that so many others feel exactly the same. Such a ripple effect on how we show up at work. So thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Like this episode? Click here for more HR talk. And if you're just catching up, check out our previous episodes right here.